So should we start?
I think that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to try and move the camera looking over my shoulder. This is the top of the loom. If I back up a bit. No, there. Okay, so we've got crossbar. There's something hanging on it. Pegged in place. I've got pegs in the side and a top bar. So that's the whole thing. But this is close up on one corner. What I'm going to do first is show you how to make a warp. It's going to be a warp for a plain weave. I've got a linen band started, which is on a rigid heddle, a little tiny rigid heddle. I don't know how well that shows with my hand behind it.
That's fine.
Maybe with a sleeve behind it. There.
Yeah, it's easy to see, Jhone. You're good.
Okay, good. So this is my COVID present from day one. I was off work and decided to turn a bone into something. But what you've basically got is rigid heddle. If anybody doesn't know, is one set of holes and one set of slots. So as the heddle moves down, it's changing which is top and bottom, because whatever's in the slots can stay up and down. In this case, I've got a loom weight made of clay hanging on the bottom. I've got it attached to the top of the loom. You could do this by itself, like as a backstrap loom, or you could tie it to a frame. Something to give you tension. And normally, whenever you weave, you're using a shuttle to take the thread in and out. So in this case, where are we here? That way. You're taking beating upwards in this case and taking the shuttle all the way through. Not getting away. The biggest thing about making the warp for that's going to be the cloth is you don't want to use a shuttle anymore. So what you're going to do is you're going to end up going straight off your ball or your bobbin. I'm just going to drop this into a bucket and lead off of there. So the first time I'm just going to take a single thread through that shed. And then you want to know how long a warp you're going to make. So on your loom, something as a tape measure, I wanted to weave a piece of cloth as long as this one, I'm going to have length at the bottom for the weight. So to be extra generous with myself, I could go double this. So if I'm going like all the way across the loom and back again, that's going to give me enough to like weave one piece of cloth without advancing. It's going to give me a small piece to just demonstrate with today. So what I can do is actually hook this round that side. Yeah, you can see that. And round that side. That'll do it. I'm going to stick another peg in here just to stop this going too short. Now, let me see all of this. If I go around here, and then back to this peg. Same thing. This one is this way. I'm going to take this loose end, the same route, and come around here. Now, when you get to what's going to be the bottom of your warp, try and keep always going around the same side of it. I'm going to just tie off on what's going to be the bottom of the warp here. Right. Try not to get tangled around myself. So then just beating that up to the top here. Now my ball of thread is always going to stay on the outside of the loom, weaving on the outside. Lucia, I'm going to do better if I have a conversation with someone.
Oh,
So
we can have a conversation if you'd like.
Okay. One or two people not muted.
That would be fabulous. I would be
Yeah.
delighted because you are doing the bit that I screwed up in my most recent warp.
Okay, in which case, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Or maybe two? I'm not quite clear why you're doing what you're doing. So is the thing that you were weaving with the rigid heddle the top band of the warp weighted piece?
Let's go with another piece. This one is totally loose and finished. So what I've got on here is, can you see the band at the top?
Just, yeah.
What I'm making now, like basically here,
Yeah.
is this band. So that band is going to be made here.
Right. Yeah, I think I've got that part.
Then basically all those strings are what I'm laying in right now.
Right.
So all those strings are going to be the warp for my piece. So
Right.
before
Okay.
you start weaving on the loom, what I'm basically using this is as a warping board.
Yes.
So I'm using this to like measure out threads all the same length and trying to not get them in tangles.
Yeah, I think the part that confused me was that you'd done a fair bit of weaving before you started laying in the warps for the warp weighted loom, and I had sort of thought that you'd sort of start near the other end.
Yeah, you don't need to. That could be like, I would do at least an inch.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be as long as this. This is just a piece that I started earlier, and
Right.
so I'm going to end up with a bigger L shape, I guess, or I'm going to cut it off.
Yeah.
Have a ribbon that just happens to match the edge.
Now, this part also, in modern weaving terms, would set your set, so to speak, your ends per inch.
Yes. Yeah. So try and beat evenly up here. Try and like keep the same tension here. I think that the single weight that I have on here is not going to be heavy enough.
Right. I found that I couldn't beat up firmly enough, so I got an exceptionally loose set, which means I basically am trying to weave full gauze, which is not ideal.
I think I've also got an interesting tangle here. So what I'm going to do is start with getting rid of some of the extra red. I want my green thread to be free running. Get rid of all of that.
Okay, so my second question, which may be in a more advanced than you are question, is are you cutting the green thread or just looping it continuously?
I'm not going to cut it. It's going to be a continuous loop. So okay. This is the first end, and that's done. That's going there. Backwards. So, okay, so now that I've changed shed on here, I hope, yeah, so beating that tightly, I'm going to bring a whole loop through here, continuous loop. You're going to hear the bucket at the bottom. So keep that loop continuously. If you can keep track of which is the top one, you can make it so that that is like always the same way up.
Jhone, is there any kind of evidence that they might have done a cross at the end to help, or anything else to help keep it from tangling? Like, what did they used to do other than keeping track? Which
there's one piece that, apart from the fact that it's been like sitting in mud for 1,000 years or something, is still it's basically the header with nothing woven with it. The one that I know of, there's a photograph of it in the original Hoffman book, and possibly I think there is something separating the front and back, and it might just be that there's a slip knot in it. It's difficult to tell because it's a single photograph from a single angle. But I would say sanity is enough reason to say that you need to like keep things like put together.
Sorry, I'll be right back. Someone's at my door.
It seems like that's the sort of thing that weavers come up with their own technique for, or else they just lose their mind.
Yeah, you're gonna want to do what works for you. When I'm doing a plain weave, I'm just trying to make sure that I've got the bottom, and keeping front and back helps. But there's also evidence that says that they played with the threads in the first 2 rows. There are things that are like twisted around each other. It might be when they're doing color variations, that if you did, say, one look green and the next look red, and then one look green and the next look red, and you wanted them not in that order as you weave,
Right.
then that they thread over. But it could also be that they just track. I'm not sure whether they are constantly the same. I think I'm changing my mind. And my down thread is going onto the bottom. And my back up again thread is going onto the top of this peg. Because that's what feels natural as I'm doing it.
Right. I can imagine that, you know, in a longhouse full of people and small children and everything, losing track periodically of which one's up seems very reasonable.
I think if you go with a like almost a muscle memory or something, this is the way my body wants to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's easier to keep consistent. I'm also just being very aware that probably my sleeve is totally in the way.
No, it's not too bad. We can still pretty much see.
Only when you're just holding onto the strap with your left hand, but I think what you're doing is comparatively obvious.
Yeah. Okay.
When you try it, it becomes quite intuitive.
Yeah.
In my experience, at least.
The only type of weaving I actually do is tablet weaving, but moving the shuttle and the weft is similar.
Yeah. So I've got a band and I can do it with tablet weaving as well, and that might be better because it might stay in place better. But what I wanted to do was just have something that's going to be a plain weave, a tabby weave.
Jhone, have you seen any evidence for work-weighted weaves that didn't have a woven band at the top, where it was just a cross?
I tried it that way, and it slid around a lot. Because you haven't got a reed, it's tricky to like keep the spacing, so this band helps. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, and I think that if a piece of cloth was like woven without that, you wouldn't you still have a selvage. There's so many fragments of cloth that they're such a small piece that you don't know how they were woven, or you don't know how they started.
In my experience, it tends to become very warp-faced because it tends to shrink in, much like tablet weaving or inkle weaving, but it works fine. Arlette would like to know about how many threads are typically in the band.
This one, I think you don't need many. I've tried it with, when I've done cards, I've tried it with 6 cards. I don't know if I've done it with fewer than that. You could probably do it with 4. I don't know that I've ever done it with a odd number. And I haven't looked at the evidence lately to see what's there. I can come back to you on that one.
Sounds good.
This one has, it's got 5, this one has 11 threads. And this pedal is based on something that's been dug up, I find, so it's plausible, but I haven't gone back and checked against the fabric finds to confirm that this is the right number. I'm going to do one more.
How wide are you aiming to make the sample piece?
I think this one I'm going to stop partway. I think I want to show you with the card weaving. What I would do is after you've got an inch or 2 inches, I would stop anyway on this particular pedal. So what I want to show you, first of all, string. What I would do is take a piece of string through the bottom here. And then if you actually separate these two, like this, what you've got here is, say, a back and a front. Up here. If you stick a slip knot in there and a slip knot in there, what you're doing is basically preserving what's going to be your shed.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is brilliant.
Yeah. And then from the bottom, you start with one slip knot and then make kind of like a chain. So someone described this as being crochet, but I think it's like a finger knitting thing. And then what's probably the easiest way to make sure you don't lose any of those is to put them all together so that you've got the last loop of your chain, the 2 slip knots that you made originally, and then just tuck the very end of the loop through them all.
So I have tried to find a recipe for that online, and what I find is it is a specifically Southern Ontario thing. That's the exact brand, that's the exact profile.
You can put something at the end of that.
So I have a couple people who
You can undo.
so I did have a couple of experiments.
So I'm just doing a very simple knot on there that I can undo later. And then that can kind of like take it out of the way. I will do the next stretch.
And do you do that by like every inch or so, or by so many threads?
It's probably going to be the same. If you're weaving constantly, if you can keep the tension the same, then if I do that every 20 threads, then it should be always the same distance.
Right.
I wouldn't leave it more than 3 or 4 inches, because what's going to happen is as you move down here, your angle is going to change and your warp starts getting to be a different length. So if you're doing a very wide piece, what you want to do is like lift this up. So you'll be, say, moving how this is tied. If that was not at the end of the fabric, you'd have like a string on it and just keep pulling it up and keep tucking it out the way as you work down. And then if you keep the triangles in the same place, you're keeping the warp threads the same.
I don't think
I'm gonna
be able to make it often enough if that's particularly feasible. I
I'm
only
gonna
make it 2 or 3 times a year.
tablet weaving.
Yeah, it's not practical for me, but yeah, if I was doing this in a production format, I'm certain that's what I'd be doing. Rather than having to find more culture. You culture latte, so you make a meat sourdough. The principle should still work as fine. I have contributed to surgery.
Sort of more realistic or more sensible for just a small piece to start, enough to stabilize.
The original idea for this, for Cool, was people would bring all the meat they've been curing and so on, and we'd all taste each other's stuff. So in virtual, that's not really practical. So we had to adapt it to this. So I had been planning to bring like 10 or 12 different types of cured meat, whatever I had on hand.
What we're going to bring back.
So is this also a linen tablet weaving?
Yeah, this is tablet weaving. So I am.
Also linen?
This one's wool. Or it might be like a wool acrylic blend. It's part of my heirloom stash, so a lot of it came without labels on it. But the moths seem to like it, so I'm thinking it is wool. Yeah.
Do you find you have to handle wool and linen differently on the warp weighted loom?
The thing that I found is a lot of my weaving on the warp weighted loom has been done at Upper Canada Village in June, and it's mid.
Right.
And here's a spool of wool. I've decided that I'm going to try doing linen instead. And I think that handles better with the humidity. But I think that's probably the only difference. Having a good fabric. So if it's wool, something that's not too fuzzy. Yeah.
And do you treat your wool or linen with any sizing?
I haven't done for a really long time. Currently I've got a short end, so I'm gonna not use that for the actual. Sorry. Same thing again. I'm going to keep the yarn on the spool. I'm going to keep the spool down here on the outside of the loom. And I'm just coming off it. This, for this one, I'm just going to start with a loose end at the bottom. I would have used the brown that I was weaving with on the tablet weaving, apart from, as I said, it's moth-eaten, so it snapped off too short. So turn the cards once and then put the
We have a question from that of what books do people recommend?
pull a whole loop. So turn the cards once, tighten it up again, and pull a whole loop through. Now, you can see this side of the balloon. You can see there's two pegs here. So on the first time I went across the top peg, the second time I went across the second peg. And I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep alternating. So what that gives me is I'm going to have two threads that are on this divide and two threads that are on this divide. So I'm getting a cross here. And this cross is giving me two adjacent threads each time. So this is going to help me set up the twill. Mm-hmm. To start with, and I'll show you the next stage with that after that. So that's feet there, and pull a loop through here. So the last one went on the top peg, so now I'm going on the peg around here. Good.
So if it's helpful, you can see my loom in the background. I made a whole inch progress since you saw it last.
I think I have Jhone's spotlighted. Let me just take her off spotlight and move it over to Karen's. We can see another loom. There we are.
Yeah, okay, so that's...
This is my tablet woven band. All the cards are down there.
If we're doing show and tell, I can show my loom with my absolutely busted warp on it.
That's my biggest fear, is busting warp.
My tablet woven band is too loose, so my set is too wide, so you can literally see through my fabric.
Which is fine. We're just making something gauzy.
Very gauzy, in nice thick wool.
Maybe it'll shrink and
It's a good theory. I like that theory. Oh, apparently I'm doing show and tell over to my busted one. Let's see if I can untangle my computer enough. Whoop, take it over, take it on the road. Come on, computer. Let's see. Okay, over here. There we go. So there's my, so you can see behind. Oh, hold on. Let me change the spotlight video.
Yep, absolutely.
There we go. So this one's mine, and you can see that you can see it in behind. So we are super gauzy because my tablet weaving isn't firm enough.
Okay, what I didn't do is I didn't bring a ruler with me. So I have
Hold on. Sorry. Heather's not using high enough tension.
I know, right? Yeah.
Everyone needs to understand this has never happened before in her life.
That's why I couldn't figure out what was wrong. You
The
can
gauzy one will firm up once the fabric is off the loom and you wash it.
That's my hope, but I also hate it a lot. So it may get cut off for the sake of all of our sanities, mostly mine.
That's valid too.
I'm pretty sure it is a cursed warp at this point. This is the second attempt for this wool on a warp. So it's been cut off a loom once already, and I think it just might be time.
I've never tried this type of weaving, but I honestly think that one of the things, being a needle worker like you, Lucia, is that weaving is a whole different set of brain skills.
Boy, is it ever.
I mean, the tablet weaving, I cannot tell you. I've probably undone more tablet weaving than I've done.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be too hard on yourself. What I noticed about your piece was that the tension was too loose, but it was almost dead even.
Yes. Thank you.
For what little encouragement I can give you.
Yeah. So we'll see what becomes of it. I'll share with the class when I get a little further. Whether that's scissors or weaving. Jhone is going great guns on warping. I'm terribly slow.
I've got huge amounts of static here. So I don't know if that's telling you how synthetic my warp is or how dry my basement is. I don't know if you can see, they just don't want to lay in the same place. It's almost magic. So I've got probably, well, I've gone through the cards twice. I've got 2 chevrons. So that's probably at least 16 turns. And I'm thinking it's half an inch. Now, and I've got like 1 shed here, which is designated. How are we doing on time?
You're about you're 40 minutes in to our 2 hour, 40.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to stop on this. I'm going to put a loop in here to make it tight. And I'm going to put a loop in the bottom. Actually, I'm going to put 2 loops in the bottom here. I'm getting huge amounts of stuff.
It eternally feels like warp-weighted weaving is weaving of all kinds is an exercise in thread management.
Totally agree, especially the earlier comment about trying to do warps with a small person present. Do not recommend it.
So, what am I doing now? I'm going up here. Normally, once I've got a warp made, I'm gonna stitch it on to, I've started using a thin piece of wood that can then just tie them here. So close. Okay. So, I'm going to show you basically, I'm going to leave that orange one there for a moment. Here's one I prepared earlier.
Oh, you're doing the kitchen shortcut magic.
Yes, the cooking show.
Yeah, either the cooking show or it's Blue Peter if you watched enough English TV 40 years ago. Okay, so can you see here? It's white on white. I don't know if
Okay.
you can see along the top edge there. There's something a bit like a blanket stitch. So I've taken the woven header from the top and I've just basically stitched onto that piece of wood, thin piece of wood, which is then just tied to the top beam. If it was a wider piece, I might tie 2 or 3 times across, like put just a thin thread through to tie it onto this beam to stop it sagging in the middle.
What's the advantage of doing that versus lashing it straight onto the beam?
Biggest advantage for me is that when I give up on a project and take it off, but I'm not convinced I've given up on a project, it's salvageable. Difference between different things.
And it's full shoulders and full fork legs and things like that.
That is an important distinction, especially for someone who currently hates her warp.
Yep. And for me, I started tying it to a thin piece like Joe because I didn't want to waste all the thread that it would take to go over my beam, which was 2 or 3 inches thick.
So the beam on mine actually has lashing holes drilled through it, which is stunningly convenient. I did not make my loom. I have borrowed it from Mistress Odette. It is there are bits of it I hate and lots of it I love, but the lashing holes through the top beam are kind of brilliant.
That does sound brilliant.
I know for me, I almost have 6 or 8 projects going on at one time, so I could easily see how I might get completely sick of one and need to start something different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you've got lashing holes in it, you're taking through like with a needle or something?
Yes, I have a long needle that I go straight through.
Yeah. So one advantage of this is because you're just lashing around, if you haven't started weaving, then you can like just poke a hole fall through there.
Yeah.
What else? Possibly you can sort of stitch more frequently depending on how often your lashing holes are.
Mm-hmm.
It mean that I wasn't waiting on someone to actually drill holes in here, or my skill at trying to get a straight hole.
It's very fair. We do have a question in the chat about how heavy are your loom weights?
They are light. I have been weaving on. I meant to bring weight scales down. Maybe I can do that in a second. I think I'm gonna guess that my loom weights might be 200 or 300 grams, and that one of my friends that weaves that I borrowed her loom, her weights might be in the order of like £1 or £2 each weight.
Whoa,
Often-
900, 2 pounds is 900 grams.
Yeah, yeah. This is a beach rock from Lancer Meadows, I think, and that's probably one of the small ones. It's my fist size. The archaeologists dug up a pile of rocks. They said they were fist size, and then they buried them again. And they're not allowed to dig them up again yet. But we keep up saying, like, will you work out where it is and actually weigh them? And we're not sure if it was like this size for the person that found them and whether that was male or female.
Right.
I don't know if Karen remembers. Bonnie's not here yet, is she?
I haven't seen her now.
No, okay. So
No.
this is not too heavy, and this is what I like.
I
That
know.
might be the same weight. I'm going to bring scales down in a moment.
Karen?
Neil's looking up in the book what the fines have averaged.
I know I have 90 gram weights and I have 500 gram weights, and the 90 gram weights I had to augment with stones because there just wasn't enough tension.
Yeah, this was the weight of some of the lightest clay weights that I came across. And I think they might be based on like finds around Israel or something. Might have been the report that we were reading that had clay weights. And this is the first set of beach stones that I picked up, and these are, I think, smaller still. The thing is, if you don't get enough tension with the weight, you can have more weights, like fewer threads per weight. So just to end up having more weights on there. Anyway, no, weights. Rock. This is one way if you've only got a rock. You can just wind it. Start with what ends up being like a hitch so that you've gone back over itself. And then after that, just wind it round until you run out of warp. If you start at the bottom and wind it, just put a hitch into it at the top when you get there. And then depending on the shape of the weight, they might stay there, they might not. So you might find that you're just tying things frequently because they're falling out. Weights like these, anything that's clay made has probably got holes in it. There are ones that are like donut shape. I've got little mesh bags that are made from old onion bags for this particular walk. Not particularly period. Okay, so then also for string pedals, what I thought that just came off of this rod is a continuous string that has loops tied at equal distances. So this is made on a jig in advance. And if you thread these in between and then stick a rod on them, you're basically getting an equally spaced thing. It was easier before I pulled the rod out. What you're going to find, what I'm going to show you, sorry, is
we have a small minute left in class. If people have final questions. I'm always happy to talk any of this stuff at any time. So if you have questions to me that don't get covered, please hit me up on the internet anywhere.
I'm going to, I have already shared with you the YouTube video. If you it's posted on the full website. There's a woman in Wales called Sally, and she has a series of at least 6 videos so far telling you how to set up the loom. And she has a spear which she ties on the back, and then the handlebar is on the front. So this stick at the back is temporary. It doesn't
my schedule says
it needs to be smooth and parallel, but it doesn't need to stay here forever. Whereas this one at the front is going to be your header rod. So this will be what I'm going to weave in and out here.
There's also, if people want to be talking, you can go to and ask technicians to break up. I know it hasn't been done, so it should still be possible to be doing it.
Joe, the one you're setting up now, is it a tabby or a twill?
This one is tabby, the white one.
Okay.
Do you have a preference on your heddles between the pre-tied ones that you did with a jig versus Sally's method of having 2 rods and tying them kind of on the loom?
I like the individually tied heddles.
Excellent.
What like the tied heddles is something like.
Oh, we're having some hiccupy sound. Is any? At least I am.
No picture either.
Yeah, she's died on mine as well. I think everyone is moving.
Nothing about it. Sorry, there's nothing about like 1970. It's just.
Uh-oh, did we lose Jhone entirely?
We might have.
Yep, we just did. Well, I'm gonna keep an eye on the class waiting room until Jhone manages to reconnect.
Yeah, that happened to me, and it was my when I was teaching, and it was my my service that booted me off.
Right. Very nice of it.
I also seen people bounce back in without having to be let in, even on ones where they have to be let in.
Well, fortunately, I'm here, and if I do need to let her back in, we got that covered. Easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Zoom's great.
So, hi everybody.
Hello.
Nice trim.
Thank you.
I think you should put yours on a rod and
Mine?
take it off and put it away.
Yeah, I think it needs a little time out because I've been staring at it for like 3 months with it haunting me, and I think we need a moment apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm liking this rod plan.
Yeah, and it's also good, even if you decide never to do it again, it's a good teaching tool because you can say, this is why tension is important.
Right?
Yes.
I never dreamed in a million years. For those who don't know me, I am notorious for having bulletproof tension. Like, my knitting can stand up by itself and possibly can survive a drop test. Like, my tablet weaving also stands up by itself. The fact, this is why it took me so long to figure out what was wrong with this warp, because the thought of too loose tension never occurred to me.
And it's interesting how, like, because I only learned to knit when I had my first grandson, because nanas know how to knit. So I probably, and I was also a week in Sault Ste. Marie with a video, so I had nothing to do.
Right, yeah.
And it was interesting that weaving actually helped me with my knitting tension immensely, because I could see immediately if I was too loose or too tight.
Right. And I'm
So
pretty sure
that helped.
I'm pretty sure knitting helps my weaving tension, because ultimately I can look and go, aha, this is doing this is doing that. I mean, string skills, while they're not the same, there's some cross-contamination
Huge.
on abilities.
And one of the things I've gotten bugged for, because I'll pick up a new string art and somebody will inevitably, well, but your tension's so good. Well, I've been doing string art since I could hold a needle, a crochet hook, whatever, beside my mother since I was probably 3 or 4.
We have Jhone again.
There's a certain amount of feel. Yay, we can go back to our class.
Yay.
So I have to
Like
say, I
a
love
group of-
seeing everyone's face.
Her video's still
Not to say that a
on,
group of SCA people couldn't like sit and entertain themselves indefinitely just by
Well,
chatting, but
We are perfectly capable of doing that, yes. Oh, there we go. Oh,
I'm willing to say there's probably a fair bit of
Twice.
expertise just in this group.
Not my sound. Yeah.
There we go.
There she is.
Okay, you got me back. Good.
We have you back. Yay.
Yay.
Still pretty sketchy though.
Uh-oh.
Joe, do you have our videos coming up on your screen at all?
How about we shut off our videos and see if that helps Jhone's video?
Okay, try it.
Because if we can reduce how much bandwidth your connection is putting up with, hopefully we get your video a little bit happier.
Okay. Yeah. Not quite sure what's happening with my connection. Maybe my neighbors have can mic up internet. Okay, so I've got a netting needle or shuttle, netting shuttle. So it's got a pointy end rather than, I mean, this kind of works because it's a little bit pointy. But this is my favorite tool for making the heddles, and there. Okay, so at the end of the string, I'm do this, which is going to be my heddle rod. Now what I'm doing here is one thread at a time.
This tying the heddles is what just killed me the last time I did a major project. It took me 2 hours to do 1 bar.
So I'm going over the front rod, I'm going over the back rod, coming back under the back rod, and making sure I capture one of the threads from the back, and then pull that to the front. And then when I'm on the front bar, I'm going, taking the previous thread, like the first loop, putting a twist into that. Actually, maybe a double twist, but a single twist is probably enough. Going through there, and then pull that one tight. So it's I'm only going around the front bar. I'm not catching any threads. This is just kind of hold it in place. And again, if I put a twist in that previous thread and pull it through, what you're ending up with is either a lot of clove hitches or something like that fancy blanket stitch. So my one loop on the back, I'm going to pull that bar out in the end, but make sure that one loop on the back has captured a warp thread. And then my next thread at the front, I'm going to skip the other side of it. Then I'm going around the rod at the back, taking the next thread from the back, and pulling around the front again. So a loop here to do the blanket stitch thing. Second loop. This one is coming from underneath up through. So I don't know what I thought I would try. Let's try wearing the video camera. Okay, we'll do a little pocket. Okay, excuse me if you all get seasick for a second. Okay, so try this. No, sorry, upside down again.
And where's that helpful daughter of yours to hold the camera?
She's doing homework. Have I just lost it? No.
It's kind of slow where I am right now. It's just a fixed picture. But it might catch up.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Okay, it's caught up now.
Yes,
Okay.
very nice.
Okay, so if you can see the bar here, yeah, that was a tight one. So I'm going over the top. I'm pulling the next thread from the front over so that I'm not going to capture. I'm going over the bar at the top. The next thread at the back, I want to capture. So I make sure when I come back under that bar that I'm trapping that thread in. So this one is caught inside a loop, but this one was between loops. And then putting a twist into here, taking my shuttle through that. And then if I pull that tight on the front there. And then going back around this time I'm not doing anything with any of the warp threads. I'm just basically doing this to hold the string heddle in place.
The close-up is brilliant, Joan. Thank you for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the tip with the netting shuttle is brilliant because doing this with just a tiny ball of thread in your hand means you drop the thread a lot and there's a lot of swearing and chasing the cat.
There's no cat in the room. We picked that cat up before class. Okay, so I'm going from over the bar at the front. I'm going over the bar at the back. Did I put? Yes, I did put. Make sure I've got one of those front. The front warp is out of the way. so that when I capture the next back warp, it's going to be just the one thread in here. And what I would say about this is you maybe don't know what you're doing for the first 2 or 3 threads, and then you practice a lot and you get it. And the only way to really get it is by practicing.
So, Jhone, it looks to me, sorry to ask the question, but it looks to me like once you get going, you can actually see which threads you're on. Like it's not hard to keep track.
No, you can do this. If you're really not sure on your first warp, you could do it with alternating threads so that you know what color they are, or you could do like a block of one color and then a block of the other color so that you know that you're keeping track. But really, so long as you can space them out and see that you've got the front threads, like they're movable, but they're, I don't know, how do you, let's see. Yeah, like once you're like close up and you're watching it, you can see this and you can keep track. It's only if you're trying to do it and you're, see this one here, because it's in, I don't know if it shows up in there, maybe from down there. You can see that it's caught inside a loop because it pulls on them. You might not be able to see the top one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
For fresh sausage, one of the things you probably want to do before you stuff anything, take a small patty, fry it up, eat it. Just don't stuff it. Just make a little, like a tiny hamburger patty, fry it, eat it, see if it's good. That way you're not, that way you can add stuff, because once you stuff it, you can't really do much to it. Without, you know, breaking open the cake and starting from scratch, which is a huge pain.
Is that you can hear Penn's sausage class continuing?
At the moment, yes, really well.
All right.
Okay, so I'm putting a double twist into the beginning of, like this is the heddle loop going backwards, and this is the beginning of it from the last stitch that was on the bar. So going through there and then pulling that knot tight to the bar, and then I can pull the thread tight. I think this might be a little bit of overkill in terms of the knots and the tightness, but it's secure. And like if I pull that bar out the top, all these loops are going to stay the same side, which means you get a good shed. So when you pull it forwards, your back row becomes the front row, and they're all in the same place. So get like a clean weave. So I'm going over here, taking one back thread and coming through and coming under to the front. And then to do the knot, again, that twist, pull through. And then the second loop is with no threads and still going through a twist. So there's kind of like 2 stitches to each heddle. Pull the next thread. Go over the bar at the back. And by going round the bar at the back, that's what's getting you the same length of every heddle. a second loop. So that one, second one is just round the bar. Should we say we're done on that? That you got that? Or does anyone want to see more? I've got no sound from any of you.
You do heddles exactly the way I do, so I'm letting people who are less confident in heddle tying.
One more.
One more.
Let's do another one or two.
Okay, I'll do 2 or 3. So I'm going over both bars. Before I do that, if I want a plain weave, I need 1 thread on the front. So round the bar at the back, capturing 1 thread from the back. I put a twist into the previous thread or the beginning of that loop. So it's kind of like 1 stitch onto my heddle bar. Now this time I'm going under to the top. I've got a twist again. So double stitch on the front bar. 1 front thread out of the way. Round the back bar. Grab the next back thread and then come under.
Now you're just using like a cotton carpet warp type of plain cotton thread for your heddles?
It's another weaving thread. Anything that's smooth and strong, linen or hemp or cotton, I would go with. This one is probably cotton. So I'm grabbing the next front thread, pulling that out of the way, going through the gap, and when I come back, I'm going to capture the next of the back threads. Twist in there, through that loop, pull that tight. And then back in here. Through that loop. So I'm going to grab the next front warp, push it aside, find my gap again, go round the back, find the next back thread, and come to the other side of that. Put the twist in there and go through that loop, twist. And then just on the front bar, second loop.
I think, Joan, I am really appreciating this method for getting those heddles the same length, because I've seen a lot of weaving where the heddles did not look the same length, and this looks like it's easy to do even if you don't know what you're doing.
This is, I think the first time that I put the bar on the back, previously I think what I've done is I've put the front heddle bar onto the, like wherever it's going to sit on here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've taken the second bar on like back there. Whatever it is, making sure you get an even spacing. So it might be just tying the two together with a loop. I don't know if you can see there. Like if I just put a fixed loop round that side and this to tie them to themselves, but actually having it round here, if it isn't quite the length of heddle you need, you could use a bigger bar at the back, which would give you, like with a bigger diameter, would give you a longer heddle. Or you could put a spacer in front of the heddle,
Right.
between that and the loom, and that would give you more space. So depending on how long your, need a word for that, your V, how far forward your V is, that's going to support the heddles.
Dawn is asking if two people making the heddles, one from each side, and then meet in the middle.
I think start in the middle and work out, because then you know who's taking which thread. The other thing, the other way you can do it is if you've got your cross, if you were to pull, the way that I've done it in the past, if this was, I can do this. If you, can you see that all the threads there are crossed over? If you actually sort out all your threads in order before you start making heddles, so that you've got them just here, then you're not like you're not trying to separate the front warp as you go. So if you've already got whatever you're trying to make your heddle around already forced to the front, then you could start at the outside and work in, or you could start at the inside and work out. And at this point, I would use this as my measuring bar. And hold on a second, try not to make you seasick. At that point, I would put the second bar here, tie the two together somehow so that you're keeping them parallel. Can you still see? Actually, I'm gonna take you out of the pocket.
This is a heck of a Disneyland ride.
Okay, there. Yeah. So if you put one rod at the front and you sort out your threads first and put them over a bar, this is the way I've done it previously. And then just use a measured length of string and tie these two together. With a shorter rod. Or just like tie this in place on the bar at the side. As long as these two rods are parallel, you're going to have heddles all the same length. You want to work out probably from where the warp hangs straight over and is fixed on the bottom bar, and that warp doesn't really move. So you want half the distance between where that naturally is and where this rod sits. So possibly like half the length out on that heddle would be a good length for your heddles. So if you tie this off at that position, I think that's the way I've had it set up before. it's something to play with and try. This way does work. So maybe like just go with that for now. But yeah, definitely you could have 2 or 3 people working on the loom at the same time, making heddles. If you're not trying to keep 6-foot distance, and if you're keeping the same tension as you go, if you're keeping it as tight as it goes on this bar, then you should end up with all the heddles the same length.
We found it valuable when there was 2 of us working heddles, even just passing the shuttle or the ball for the heddle string back and forth from back to front. Even that seemed to speed us up.
I've done that before as well. If we've had someone behind and someone in front of the loom.
Exactly.
So sometimes one person might be handling creating all the heddles, but if the next person is just making sure the threads are in the right place as you go. I think I've done that way 2 or 3 times, that you just basically, one person is concerned with stitching the heddles and the other person is concerned with making sure the warps fit in the right place.
Yeah, it worked very well for us.
Yeah.
Just as a time check, Jhone, you've got half an hour currently remaining.
Okay. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, because we set this up to make a quill. What I would do on that one. Funny feedback sound.
Yeah, I'm also getting odd feedback sound.
That's like we've got a monster. I'm gonna put this one on. Lose this loop. Okay, so if you're near me, what I've got.
Yeah, I can still hear you if that's what you're wondering.
I've got the original shed that I worked out before. So these are set up 2 forward, 2 back, 2 forward. So the ones that are forward here, I'm gonna undo that loop and find a way onto these. I've gone a bit low. If I just now put a slip knot in here, like that. And I am going to try and tie a knot on. Oh yeah, if you make a needle loop with this, put it through on your heddle, and then put it round. This is the weight. So you put it through the string on the way, and you put it round there. You pull. Then that then attached to the warp threads. Okay, and then that's giving me the tension on those. And then these threads. These are the ones that have. These are the ones that get tied round the heddle thread, and think I want to. Before I do this, I'm going to ring in the back so that I can find it later if I need to. So then I can lose that knot now. So all of those are two at a time through the other. I can work out exactly the tension and the static. I'll also put a weight on these so that they're not getting tangled. So again, the loop on the strip is tiny. So I try and get these all to the same tension. Pull them through the loop here. Keeping what I can, as much as I can, I keep the tension on the top as I go through that loop. Tighten up on the bottom end. So this would be the other bit. If I tie this to my heddle support,
Jhone, another quick question as you're tying just about the loom weights. Did I see you tie all the forward weights onto one loom weight and all the backward ones onto another?
I've done that now. Yes, that's what I did. When I start weaving twill, I think I want 2 rows of weights at the back.
Right.
But it doesn't matter about, or there's no point having 2 rows at the front because they're all sitting in this front beam. So they're not really moving. The ones at the back, forwards and back.
Okay.
Still want to have an equal number of threads per weight. So if all your weights are the same, then you might end up having the weights on the front beam space twice as often as the back 2 rows.
Right.
So you still have 20 threads each weight or something like that.
So to go back to the tabby, would you have basically 2 sets of weights front and back?
2 sets of weights, yeah.
Okay.
So for this one, I've got 4 weights on the front and then 4 weights on the back.
Right.
And they're, I think every 2 inches. I think I've only got a 8-inch warp.
When I first
So when
thought
you're
of what,
doing
sorry,
twill, when you're doing twill, you just need 1 loop to hold 2. You don't need to be tied. if I start again, I'll just tie a knot to start with. So this time, because I've got the thread sorted, I'm just gonna go round the back bit. I'm gonna grab the first and then tie the stitch onto the front rod. Tie this off on both sides so it's not wobbling. Two. This is my next two. So I'm going over, round. Twist and through. And then just on the rope, going twist and through. I didn't tie that tight enough. It's too sliding, so it's short this time. So I've got one that's loose and tight. That's like missing her. What am I going to do? I give up. I'm going to give up on the twirl. So when you finish weaving and you just want to get rid of things, if you like untie, just pull it off.
Currently have about 15 minutes remaining, Joan.
Yeah, but then that string becomes a challenge for 100 humans to untie knots. What I'm going to do now is take the rod out the back. So as you slide it down, see there's a bit more slack in the back bit. Can you see? And then you've got the heddles here for weaving with. So they're all at least close to the so that you've got a shape for weaving. and they all seem to hold tightly so that they're not going to shift forwards and backwards. Why don't we throw questions? Because I think I've pretty much covered what I want to talk.
For this sort of weaving noob, is it possible for you to show us the position for the two weaving places? I just want to see how the threads move when you move the heddle rod.
Okay. Let me see there.
I can kind of see.
Wait, don't guess this.
Yeehaw.
It's like a roller coaster ride. You can see this is forwards this way.
Right.
And you can see the heads here.
Yep.
Not very well. There, you can see the heddles here.
Mhm.
And as I go back, the
Bar's slightly in the way, but I think I can see it.
yeah. The shed now is back in there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a bit low. I'm just going to pull this out. No, I'm not. We'll leave that one there. That's the basic of the shed. I don't know. You can see the blue thread up the top.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see where the blue's up there. So that's the shed that the yarn is currently in. And then as it comes forwards to here, apart from all the spaghetti in there, you can see that there's now like a cross new shed below it.
Yep.
Fit.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to see. Somebody else would ask questions. So.
I haven't been shy about asking as we've gone along, so. Anybody?
I'm finding that the sound and the feedback on the sound's really disturbing.
Yeah, the feedback on this one has just kicked in the last little while, and I'm not quite sure where it's coming from.
I'm not sure either because I'm not hearing it at all.
I'm hearing it pretty distinctly.
Yeah, and I've been hearing it too, Heather, and my sound's been off, so
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'm
And now-
hearing it more on Joe than on Heather,
Yeah.
I think. And it was worse on whoever said they weren't hearing it at all. Theirs was completely garbled, but it's more garbled than feedback. It's not pitchy.
Yeah, it's really odd. So I actually wonder if Zoom's having a bad afternoon.
Yeah. Should we give it a break?
Perhaps. If there's no other questions, thank you so much for showing us this, Jhone, complete with
Yeah.
roller coaster rides. An added excitement to the to the whole thing. It's been a delight, and now we can all go and do more work with weaving.
Yeah.
Or not.
can just enjoy the process if we don't want to do it, because it was pretty fantastic. It's knitting the heddles that have always made me crazy. And
So I knit the heddles the way Jhone does. And after you got the hang of it, that like you do 5 and you're like, I have no idea. And then it clicks and you're like, oh, okay, there's no.
Say somewhere between like 10 and 50, you know what you're doing. And then you get to the end of a warp and it's like, okay, I know what that is. And then you don't do it again for another however long until you get to the next warp. And it's like, I've got to teach myself all over again.
Yes. But then
Yeah,
it only
pretty
takes you
much
10 the next time. And you go, oh, right, this is how this goes. And it's fine. But I mean, heddles suck no matter what loom you're on.
yeah, especially when your whole warp gets pulled out of them accidentally.
Yep. Been there, done that.
Yeah. Now I gotta go build a warp weighted loom, because
Yeah.
not like I have 7 million other projects I should be doing. So
The other suggestion I'm going to make is take it easy on yourself and don't try and do it all totally period every time, because it was quite liberating when I got asked to, I think it was like the Toronto Guild or something. So it was all modern weavers. And I thought, you know what? I don't need to do this with the finest single spun wool that I can find. And that's when I made this warp, and it's like, it's almost a mock cotton. It's thick and it weaves fast and it stays in control, and I don't fight it with every shed change.
I still seem to fight at every shed change. That's probably my biggest frustration with warp weighted weaving, is it feels like I fight for every shed, but I think that might just be me.
But would sizing make any difference? Like I've never used sizing on anything, and I've got linen singles on one of my looms right now, and I won't use sizing because it's got weird stuff in it usually.
I just do sizing with flax. Straight up.
Can you just try it wet? Like, don't worry about sizing, but just try humidity. Try a spray of water.
Yeah. I currently have wool, so.
Yeah.
I use sizing. I've used sizing once on wool, and it was mostly because it was winter. My house is dry. I tried spraying it with like this oil thing I've got, and all it did was make me crazy. It's the only time I've used sizing, because it just was so fuzzy so fast because it was so dry, and it was wool I'd had hanging around forever. I'm pretty sure I probably should have just chucked it and started again, but I was determined to finish it. It turned out okay in the end, but washing the sizing out was a pain in the...
Okay, so not worth the headache, because my looms are in a campish area.
Yes, Karen says that sizing didn't make a whit of difference to her weaving when she tried it.
Yeah.
I tried it once. It clogged up the nozzle of the spray bottle, and I broke the spray bottle, so I gave up. I don't remember it getting any worse as I carried on weaving.
Oh, Donna says she uses sizing for wool and flax and hemp, and she loves it.
Oh.
So, there we go.
Huh.
So she says she uses hairspray.
Mm-hmm.
She says she uses hairspray. It needs a bit more sizing. I use hairspray.
Nice.
Huh.
Okay.
I know a weaver from the East Kingdom that I was chatting with, she uses basically flax snot, like flax, boiled flax to get the goopy bit, and then she soaked everything, and she really liked that. So there may be experiments in my future.
Yeah. AKA egg substitute, but
yeah, exactly.
That's what I find funny. So people, just to go off on a somewhat of a tangent, people are talking about using xanthan gum as a thickener for natural dye printing and stuff, because it soaks up so much. It's so hygroscopic. So I need to test this, because I have some in my cupboard because I use it in my baking. Which
Donna says she uses either gelatin or gel for sizing.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is not super weird.
Yeah. Because I know people have talked about using free starch and stuff, but not spray starch doesn't come in my house because I can't figure out what the hell's in it.
That's because it smells funny.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's important.
I hate the smell of it.
Okay.
Ugh.
I've never seen the point of spray starch for anything I've needed it for. I've always had 7 other options that I can pull out of my kitchen cupboard.
If you do any historic houses and stuff like we do at Westfield, spray starch is brilliant because you forgot to iron something and your color needs to stand up. Now this is not for like your color needs to stand up. You're done. It's awesome. Yeah. That's the only thing I use it for.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Applique when quilting. If you spray the cotton in advance, you can actually iron it around. We're using tin foil from the bottom of a tin plate.
Where's that?
Oh, cool.
Oh, Sarah, it is your audio.
Fabric, iron the edge around it, take your template out, and you've now got a perfect edged applique.
Yes, Sarah, it's your audio.
It's Sarah's audio that's making everything wonky.
So sorry.
It was fine earlier. It just suddenly decided to lose its mind.
Yeah.
Oh, and now it's settled again. Oh,
It's weird. I can hear you perfectly. So.
You sound a little Darth Vader-ish, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, if we have no more pressing questions, I'll look forward to seeing weaving.
Okay.
Where?
It was just lovely to hang out with you all.
Oh, it was lovely to see
Thank
people.
you, Jhone. It was so nice to see and hear and talk weaving. And
Yeah, absolutely.